Hello, and welcome to using grouping and views for targeting data in B2W estimate. My name is Brian Outley. I have been with the company for about just a little under 3 years now. I've been software training for about 13 years total. And alongside me today, we have Patrick, the liaison, and he's going to be handling the different questions that you guys might have during the presentation today. So you're going to have a question section over there on the side of your screen. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask those to Patrick, and then he should be able to respond those to you for the questions that you might have. And at the end, we're going to kind of have a section set aside so that way any questions that you might have, we can kind of go over those with you guys. So with that being said, I want to kind of do a quick overview of exactly what it is that I'm going to be talking about today. So the different sections of the overview of the grouping and views. So within estimate, when I get that pulled up, we're going to be talking about the item listing view. So just so you guys know that anybody that actually has B2W estimate right now, a lot of people tend to just kind of think of that as a pay item listing view. So where you can just simply look at your pay items and put your different bid quantities and those kind of things in there. There's actually a lot more you can do with that if you're utilizing the grouping and views. So we're going to kind of take a deep dive, not too deep of a dive, but a little bit of a dive into that so you can kind of see what we can leverage the system with that. In addition to the item listing view, we're going to take a look at the estimate and detail view. So for those of you that are familiar with the estimate and detail view, I kind of like to say that that's where you're going to be doing, 90% of your estimating if you're an estimator. So it's going to be a listing usually of all the different pay items where you're going to put your production rates, kind of fine tune the estimate, if you will. But if you were to leverage the grouping and views in the estimate and detail view, you can actually get a lot more out of the system. And that's what I'm going to show you and talk about. And then last but not least, what we're going to look at is we're going to take a look at the bid form section. So the bid form section of B2W estimate is the location on where we can actually go and take a look at the different pay items that your customer is going to be seeing. So instead of just seeing a listing of all the different pay items they're going to be on there, it's actually going to have different grouping options. So we're going to take a look at the bid form option at the very end and see the different group by options. So with that being said, let's go ahead and look at my test box that I've set up for this demonstration, and we'll look at these 3 different areas of the estimate. Okay, so what I've got now is B2W estimate pulled up. So with estimate pulled up, we're going to navigate to the item listing screen, which is by default just a listing of the different pay items that are going to be in there. So I'm going to navigate, we're under estimate information right now. And this is, like I said, an estimate that I had already kind of set up for demonstration purposes. So under the item listing screen, you're going to notice that we've got 7 different pay items in here. And up top here, we have our views and displays ribbon. We also have a filters and groups ribbon. First, we're going to talk about the views and displays ribbon up top. So if you click on the views and displays ribbon up top, you're going to see a view option, and by default, it's always usually set to the pay items, okay? And that's what we're looking at. So a lot of times what an estimator will do is they'll input the pay items that they're going to be using for that estimate, and they'll put like a big quantity and what the unit of measure is going to be for that. But what I mentioned before is we could actually leverage this to be able to, let's say we want to make a bid review viewing. And so a bid review viewing would have cost structure to it, right? So we would want to go in there and make adjustments to that cost structure. So what we would do is we would change our view option instead of just pay items right here. We can change that, and you're going to notice there's quite a few different drop-down options right here to choose from. So in my example, we're going to change that to pay items and cost structure. So when I do that, what you're going to notice here is a couple things just changed, okay? So the things that just changed are the column headers. So there's a couple different extra column headers that wasn't there before, and you're also going to notice the little plus next to the pay item, okay? So first, let me talk about the different columns that were added. So I went ahead and added a couple what we call customized columns. So anybody can add customized columns to get the type of information that it is that you're looking for, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how it is to create a customized column. So I already created these for my bid review example that I was talking about. Is what you would want to do, if you notice up top, these are the column headers. So we have like production rate and crew days and so forth. If you right click on that, you're going to get an option to customize column. And so what we're looking at here is what we call the columns manager. So any available columns that can be added, it's your discretion, anything that you want, then you can go ahead and input those in here. So you would just simply select it and then say, okay, and then add it. I'm not going to add any additional ones because the ones that I want are already here on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and just say exit out of that. And then what I'm going to do, because like I said, it's going to be a bid review view that we're creating, but I want to see the cost structure under it. So I already changed my viewing up top from pay items to pay items and cost structure, right? So what I can now do, because I got this little plus button, I can expand open the mobilization pay item now. So if I do that, it opens up a layer, a level, if you will. And in that first level, we have what we call a task. So the task is the level within that pay item, okay? I can go a little bit further if I want to. And then if I go in a bit further, then we have the crew. And so for those of you that are familiar with the system, the crew is in which the level we would set our production rate. So maybe at a bid review, we want to review those production rates. And so what we can do is we can come in here, because we notice that it's not gray, we can make adjustments to those production rates or crew days, however which way that you want to do it, okay? So that's one way to do it. We can expand it another layer down too, and that's going to show the components within the crew. So maybe I want to make an adjustment to the quantity. Once we're all together as a group, we say, you know what, we want to actually make an adjustment to that actual crew itself. So we can do that here. Now, if you want to actually expand them all at the same time, so that way we're just not doing one single pay item at a time, if you actually right click on the column header up top, you're going to get an option here to show the different levels on which you can expand it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show to item level 3. Item level 3 is actually going to get me to my crew level, because that's the level which we can like change the production rates and so forth. And so what I'm looking at now is I'm basically looking at all the pay items like I originally was. However, I've actually got cost structure with my added columns. So this is a really cool and quick and easy way, it's like I said, at bid review, to be able to go through and make those changes if you need to. So we can easily come in here and say, you know what, my production rate is changed. You know what, let's actually say it's 0.25, right? Okay, 0.25 on that. Let's actually go ahead and say it's 5 for this grubbing crew, 5. So it just makes it a lot easier and a lot more efficient to be able to kind of run through it this way through this view. Now, for those of you that are using our B2W Enterprise version, you're going to have the ability to save this display. And I'd highly recommend that if there's like a particular view that you like. So what I would do is I would go ahead and come over here to this little button that says save the current display. And I'm going to go ahead and just do that so you can see what that looks like. So we're going to click on that. I'm going to call it bid review display. And then you're going to get to share the display. So this basically allows you to share this display with anybody within your organization, or if it's something that's specific to you and you don't want to share it with anybody, then obviously you just wouldn't select it. I'm going to go ahead and just say, yep, I want to share it with anybody else within my organization. And then so the whole point of creating that shared display is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, add those custom columns, and do everything you did. You already have that view available, and then it'll be down on the drop down the next time that you want to go do a bid review for maybe a different estimate. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say okay. And then now we're going to see it down in my drop down. You're going to notice I have a couple other ones that I've already created that are actually in there. So if I go ahead and just say none and leave it at that, and that's what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink this back up, and I'm going to expand it back to the level 1, which doesn't show my cost structure. Okay. So I'm still looking at the view of pay items and cost structure. So that's still the view that I've still got pulled up here. I'm going to keep that for right now. The next thing I want to show you is how we can actually leverage this pay items and cost structure view with adding a filter and group to it. So right now, before I do that, I want to point out something to everybody on here. And I want to show you that I'm using something called a work type and a phase. So in B2W estimate, a work type is something to assign, to allocate to a pay item to say the type of work that it is. And so multiple pay items can have the same work type. So for example, these three at the bottom here, these 3 pay items have paving, these 2 have grading, and these are just singular work types. Okay, so it's a way to be able to group different pay items to get additional information. Same thing with our phasing, right? I've said that, you know what, these particular pay items, these right here, these top 3, and then it looks like number 5 here is day, and then this one here is going to be night, and then we've also got night work down here at the bottom. So then that way you're going to see here in a minute how we can use the grouping to kind of help better leverage the information that we're getting and to be able to sort it. So with that being said, I'm going to go up top here to my filters and groups. And under this ribbon right here, I'm actually going to group by. So the example I want to give you is, let's say I'm an estimator, and all I'm really focused on is wanting to work on paving work type, because that's my primary focus maybe for that day, or maybe that's all that I ever want to work on. So instead of seeing everything that's in the estimate, I can, you know, obviously just break that down to just the paving. I come up here to the filters and groups, and then changing that. And you're going to notice a lot of other different grouping that you can do, but I'm just going to be using the phase and the work type example in this demonstration. Excuse me. And then the work type is what we're going to select, and so it's going to group it. So now if you look over here, instead of just having it by the pay items, it's grouped them by the different work types that those pay items are associated to. So if I expanded paving, for example, it's there. However, it's still showing all those other ones. So I'm going to take it one step further, and I'm going to say filter by. And so what this allows me to do is I'm going to filter by a specific work type, and that specific work type is going to be paving. So when I go to my work type, and then I'm going to say, instead of say all, I'm going to go ahead and get a selection of my work types, and then I'm going to go ahead and say paving, like this. So the point of this being mainly is you're going to be able to only see currently what it is that you're wanting to work on, to kind of help simplify and clean up what it is that you're working on. And now I can still right click on my column header here and expand to level 3. And like I said before, that's going to allow us to be able to make any changes that we need to, maybe like in the bid review is the example I gave, to be able to go in there and do that. So it's just a nice way to be able to kind of clean up how you're looking at things in the estimate. Okay, so I'm going to move forward and go to the estimate detail section. I'm going to go ahead and set my group by back to the way as far as none, so that way we can kind of just be back to where I originally was. So I'm going to set this back to the blank as well. And then just the filter by and everything, I'm going to set that back to all. So that way it's just set back to the way I initially had it. Okay. And I can even leave my views displays how they are. So moving forward here to the estimate detail tab. Like I mentioned when I first started, the estimate detail tab is traditionally a lot of times the primary focus of where the estimator is going to be, where they're going to be inputting their production rates, kind of fine-tuning the estimate, if you will. So instead of just looking at a singular, pay item to get the information that you want, which is certainly something you can do, and it is great. So like for this example right now, before I've made any changes, what you're going to see here is you got mobilization, right? Well, and this is the tree view that I'm looking at. If I look over here, I can see that the total mobilization cost me $575.89, and then the total price was $1,684, and that's great. Same thing with like the fine grading and so forth. But maybe you want to see all of these roll up. Maybe you want to see the cost and the price roll up based off a particular group buy. So if you've created your work types and have assigned those properly to the pay items, and same thing with the phasing, like how I did with the night and the day, if you've created those and you've assigned those to the actual pay items, you can actually leverage this group by to see that data information roll up, which is pretty cool. So this is how it is without any kind of filtering, without any group by. And for those of you that are using it, this is pretty much what you're used to seeing. But with what I've got in here, like with the different paving ones, what I'm going to do is up top, I'm still on my filters and groups ribbon up here, but I'm going to change my grouping, and I want to change my grouping to show work type. Okay. And so this is showing all work types because I'm not filtering a specific work type right now. But what's cool is if I left click on the paving over here in what we call the tree view, if I look over here to the right now, you're going to be able to see the total cost of all of my pay items. So these are all the different pay items with the associated work type of paving. So now it kind of gives you a little bit better understanding of where your total cost and the price, and it's all going to be rolled up. So it's kind of a quick and easy way of being able to look at that information other than just at a singular pay item level. And then the same thing with the phase, and I'll take a look at that one too, since I've got those set up here. So if I do my group by and I change it and I select phase, so you'll see that we have the day work. So maybe I want to be able to say, oh, okay, how much is my day work pay items? How much are they costing me? Well, if I go over here to my right, under my summary, once again, so for my day work, it's $39,000. And then for my total price to the customer, you know, after the markups and everything, then it's going to be $74,000. That's what I've decided for my day work. Okay. Same thing here with the night work. I could expand that open too. I'm going to go ahead and shrink that back up. Now, another really, really cool thing that I think is really neat, a lot of people aren't aware of within this estimate detail that you can do with grouping, other than what I just showed you with the roll up of the cost and the price, is something that we have called global edits. So what B2W calls a global edit is in the estimate itself is when you make a change to something. So if you're making a change to a particular component within an estimate, let's just say like a foreman, how much they get paid. So if a foreman gets paid a certain cost, if I change what they make, we have a global edits feature in here. It'll change that to the new price, which is an awesome, awesome feature, right? However, by doing this filters and groups by phase, for example, and if you notice, that's what I'm still on, what you can do is you can set your global edits by a specific phase. And so the example I wanted to kind of point out would be like, and I'll use the foreman again. So let's say night work, right? So we've got foremen in the night work. Maybe the foremen that are going to be in the night work, we know that we're going to be paying them a little bit more money. There's a premium for working at the nighttime, but we don't want to make that global change throughout the whole entire estimate, only for night work. So as long as we have the phasing set up for one, and then two, we have the filters and groups and it's groups by phase, we can come over here and right click on night work. And then you're going to get a couple different options right here. And then we're going to say edit cost detail. Okay. So when I click on edit cost detail, what's going to happen is going to bring up this global edit. So for anybody that is using B2W estimate right now, they're probably familiar with what global edit looks like. This is basically the same thing, except it's specific to night work. Okay. And now I'm going to we already hopped over here to the labor. You can do this on equipment, labor, crews, materials, any of them. But with my example, I got my foreman right here, right? Foreman, I think, makes 24 bucks an hour, but only for night. I want to go ahead and change that. I want to say it's $29, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and say, okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and say, are you sure you want to change it for a portion of the estimate, or just a pop-up saying that it's changing just for night work? And you know what? It did. Any foreman that's associated to just night work has made that change. So now, instead of having to go through and find out where all of those foremen are at and all the different crews, you just made that change and you're done. So it's pretty cool to kind of go in and make those adjustments. Another thing to point out too, when you're in here, if especially, and I'll use my example of the group by, and I'll do work type. A lot of times estimators will be focused on a particular work type that they're working on, and they don't really care about seeing everything else that's over here on the left-hand side. So actually, let me set it back to none. So by default, you're going to see all pay items, okay? And that's great to be able to see all the pay items on the estimate. Sometimes if you've got a lot of pay items, that can be a lot to look at, especially if you're not really concerned about seeing all those. So if you have work types associated to the pay items, then you can do like up top here again, and we can say, you know what, let's group it by a work type. And then I only want to focus on filtering by work type. And then I'm going to pick a specific work type that I want to work on. And so this is going to be grading, because we've got a grading one there. So we're going to mix it up and then use grading. And so now it's going to make looking at things a lot easier as far as what we've got here. So if I come back over here and expand that open, now you're going to notice that I'm only looking at my grading work type and then pay items. So at any time you can change these, take these filters off, and set it back to the way it was. But that's a really, really cool feature a lot of people aren't aware of, even if they are using it, just kind of filter it down to the specifics on what it is that you're wanting to look at. Okay, let me go ahead and set these back to none. And then we're going to take a look real quick and take a look at the bid form section. And I want to show you how to get the most out of the bid form that you send to your customer. So the pay items, once they've have all their markup and everything on them, how it's going to be sent to the customer. So over here, all the way to the right, you're going to have the bid form tab, okay? By default, if you don't select anything at all, it's going to display all of the different pay items, just basically lined up originally like how when we were in item listing. So before I make any adjustments, I want to show you what it looks like, just normal, and how you would send it to the customer if I didn't make any group by changes. So if we go to you'll notice over here on the left, I'm under the bid form settings to make that potential change for the group by. I'm going to go to print, fax, and email bid forms. And then I'm going to click on this preview button right here, and then it's going to give me a display of all the different pay items. So it's pretty straightforward. Most people, this is what they're used to seeing and to hand to their customer, okay? So, but now your customer has requested, say, hey, it'd be really cool if you could send me that bid form in a grouping of, hey, the different types of work or phase. Well, guess what? Now we can, because we've set those up. So we'll take a look at both of them and see how they look on here. So if I close this and I go back to my bid form settings up top, and before I do this, I do want to point this out, that in order to be able to use the group by on the bid form, the B2W has two different types of bid form. There is a classic bid form and there's a private. You have to have the private. Everybody has it. It's just a matter, do you have it selected in your tools options under reports? Okay, so you can go to tools options and reports and change it to the private bid form selection and not the classic. Most anybody who's gets set up, that should be the new form that everybody has. So it's under tools options and then reports, and then you can change it. If you need help with that, what you can do is contact our support team. They'd be more than happy to help you. I just don't want anybody to go back and try this and then they're thinking, well, wait a minute, I don't have the ability to group by. If that is the case, then it's because you're probably set up on the classic version and it needs private version to be able to see this group by setting. So I just wanted to point that out. So whenever I do my group by, what we're going to do is we'll do phase first. So that way we can see, the customer can see what it's going to look like in the pay items in the different phasing. That way you can see how that translates over. We'll go ahead and do a preview. And so we got our day work right here, all the different pay items of the day work. I've elected to just go ahead and give me kind of a subtotal of what the total price is going to be, and then the unit of measure, and then the quantity, same thing here, and then the total price. So that one looks pretty good. And then the next one that I'm going to show you, I'm going to go back to the bid form settings, and then we are going to go to the work type. And then after I've selected the work type, print, fax, email, bid forms, and then we're going to do a preview of this one. And so this one's pretty cool too, because, you know, like I said, you can see the grading, mobilization, paving, site work, and then if I scroll down here, if it lets me scroll down here, yep, there we go. Then I get a total. So basically, the whole point is you get some different options to be able to group instead of just giving just the pay items. So if you're being requested something specific, then you can do that. Before I end here, because that was some of the main things I wanted to cover, I do want to point this out to everybody that's on the phone. The examples I gave you are just some of the very few examples of especially as far as like the grouping goes. If I navigate real quickly back over here to my estimate and detail section, and you click up here by the group by, there are multiple other ways to group by other than just the two examples I gave you. So I want to point out that there is more robust functionality than just those. And we also have the ability to do hierarchical grouping with multiple different group bys to kind of give you more information as well. So I do have a question about changing the bid form from private in tools options. So I'll absolutely show you how to do that. So let me navigate back real quick and show you guys that. So for those of you that want to just take a look to make sure you're on the right one here. So if you're in B2W estimate, so as long as you're in an estimate, you can access tools options, or you can still access it from the home screen. But since I'm in an estimate, I'm going to access it from this area. Notice I clicked on edit and tools up top here. So the edit and tools ribbon is going to give me the ability to click on this little green setup gear. And so when I click on the setup gear, if you're in an estimate, you want to make sure you click on tools options, okay? Tools options will change what we're about to do moving forward for all the settings. Estimate options is any changes specific to this estimate, okay? So it's tools options that we would change this for. So for tools options, you're gonna go all the way down to the bottom here, and you're gonna click on reports. And so under the reports, this one moving forward, my system is set up for classic. I changed it specific on the estimate that we're looking at. That's why I was able to see it. But on my system overall, it was still set up to classic bid form. But the reason I'm able to see it on mine is because I changed it specific to this particular estimate. But if you are set up on classic bid form, like what you see right here, what you'll want to do is you'll want to change it to private bid form, okay? When you change it to the private bid form, all you have to do is simply click close, and any estimates moving forward will then be able to use that group by setting on the bid form. So that's what you'll want to do. And if you still need help, obviously you can contact support, and they'll be able to walk you through it. You may have additional questions, after this, or just things might come up. So feel free to reach out to the sales department. The number and information is listed on the screen here. In addition to that, the support team is always willing and available to help anytime. So by all means, please reach out to them as well. Also, to keep in mind, our next webinar coming up is going to be using maintenance codes to drive better reporting within B2W Maintain. And so this is going to be Thursday, November 19th, 2020. So it's just right around the corner here. I hope everybody has a good day. Thank you so much.